While recent rumors about conference realignment and the future of Clemson seems like the future's getting more and more clear, in reality, it's as muddy as ever.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Clemson podcast. I'm your host here, John Bivens, here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. You can follow us over at Twitter at I am John Bivens. We are a credentialed media member for Clemson University. Thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We're part of the amazing Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. After you listen to this podcast, make sure you go listen to your second listen and let it be that Locked On ACC show where they dive into more content all about the ACC. Here on the Locked On Clemson, though, you're getting three things. You're getting all sports, all passion, all the time, where we're bringing you everything you need to know regarding Clemson athletics. Today's episode's going to be great. Hey, as ACC, they're in trouble. Their heads are above water, but it might be sinking soon. And as much as my fan side wants to say we stay in the ACC, it might be best for Clemson if we actually end up switching conferences. So we're going to talk about all that and so much more. We're grateful for all of our sponsors that make this show possible. But let's dive in. There's been so many rumors going on about how Clemson is in talks with the Big Ten. They're in talks with the Big 12. They might join the SEC. There's rumors going left, rumors going right. People all over the internet are posting things, and a lot of it's clickbait. I'm going to go ahead and let you know. Don't listen to everything you see. If you're scrolling on Twitter, don't believe all of it, because right now people are saying it's clear. It is muddy. Right now, Clemson's future, they're in the process of everything. You don't know much, right? Like right now, the only thing we know is that the future is going to be different. We know that right now, it's not going to be the exact same as it is right now. In the future, it's going to be different. I am someone that I love the ACC. I love it. I love the history of it. I love the prominence of it in college sports overall as a whole. I love the ACC. I love everything it is. And the thought of Clemson not being in the ACC bothers me. Like I don't want to see that. I want to see Clemson locked in. I want to see Clemson a part of a part of the ACC, continuing that history going forward. But that doesn't seem like it's an option. So, for the first thing we just want to talk about, it looks like most likely Clemson isn't going to be a long-term ACC school. With all the court cases going on, and the same is true for FSU, there's a current of total of 5 different lawsuits happening right now. 2 with Clemson, the ACC, 2 with Florida State and ACC, and then 1 of the Florida Attorney General suing the ACC about trying to receive some documents that are hidden right now and redacted due to tax and trading information and that kind of stuff. So there's 5 lawsuits. With all that happening, there's so much animosity. There's so much potential of like Clemson has bad feelings on the ACC has bad feelings on Clemson. Let's say ACC wins this battle. Okay, well, Clemson and FSU now have huge problems with the ACC that now are not giving them the money they deserve, are not fighting for them to get more money, but also just beat them in a lawsuit. If the opposite is true, if Clemson and FSU win, how does ACC feel about that? That just means they're definitely out the door. So the future is going to be different. And so what we're going to do is we want to start off, what would it look like for Clemson to join each of the conferences, all right? So there's 3 main conferences at center, with the Pac-12 being no more. There's only a Power 4 power conferences in the nation. You got the ACC, which is it a Power 4 still? We'll talk about that later. But then you have the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12. What would it mean for each of those schools to join in, for each of Clemson to join one of those conferences? So first, let's look at the SEC. There's rumors and people, a lot of fans, I feel like SEC, the talks that are coming about Clemson joining the SEC is not from people, insiders, not from people following the case. It's more of like a fan center. It feels more like a fan tape because SEC is obviously one of the biggest football conferences in the nation. They have some huge additions with Texas, Oklahoma this year being their first year. So there's a lot of hype there with that, and obviously Clemson, FSU being high-level profile college football and college sport universities. There's a lot of fans that are like, let's join the SEC. That makes the most sense. We're a great football school. Let's join them. There's a lot of SEC fans being like, we don't want you. Well, it honestly, when you look down into it and you look at see how everything's going right now, it doesn't look like Clemson FSU joining the SEC is a potential. Right now, it seems, and the rumors are saying that the SEC is passing, that they are not interested in that. And honestly, I think that makes sense. Yesterday, we got in some conversations with some comments over on a YouTube video from yesterday's episode. And honestly, here's why I think us joining the SEC doesn't make sense. One, the SEC isn't really focused on this area. They're more focused on like more south, a little bit more like the southeastern part, more towards Texas. I know it's Southeastern Conference, but really the Carolinas aren't a part of it. They already have a school in South Carolina. And I know some of you are like, well, there already is other schools with multiple universities in the conference or in the SEC. Yes, but look at the market. When it comes to a national level, South Carolina is not one of the biggest markets, right? Like, definitely not. When it comes to football, Texas is huge. Florida's big. Georgia's big. Alabama's big, right? Because they got those big universities. They got Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Texas A&M, right? They've got multiple universities from there. South Carolina, while Clemson is a huge nationally ranked and nationally recognized program, they have a big market. The state of South Carolina doesn't have a huge market with it. And now, if you're listening, you're in South Carolina, I'm by no means disrespecting. I'm by no means saying that South Carolina is not a college football state. Not at all. It's huge, right? But when it comes into comparison to those other universities or other states like Texas, it doesn't measure up to that extent. So for that reason, SEC, I could easily see them saying, nah, Clemson, we already have, there's this unwritten rivalry between Clemson and the SEC, which would be fun to experiment with, them getting in that conference. But at the same time, they already have it covered with the Gamecocks. So why would we add that already? Plus, they just added 2 teams. The conference is massive. SEC is a huge conference. ACC is too with 18 schools, but SEC is a big conference. So that makes sense why they would pass there. I don't think it's any disrespect to Clemson. As a Clemson fan, as a credential media, I'm not disrespected by Clemson or SEC saying if they said no. That doesn't bother me because it makes sense on a business side. It makes sense on a marketing side. While as fun as it would be to see Clemson match up against those high-profile teams more often in the SEC, I think that would be electric, and I think we'd have some success, but it makes sense. Moving on, the next one, obviously the top 2 ideas or an ideal candidates for landing spots for Clemson would be SEC. We talked about them, and next would be Big Ten. Well, the Big Ten, while they are very dominant, they do make a lot of money with contracts and that kind of partnership deals. It doesn't look like that's a realistic option because one thing the Big Ten is proud of is they're proud that every single university in the Big Ten is AAU accredited, which that is an accreditation that is given out. Not a lot of schools have that, but every Big Ten school is AAU accredited. Neither Florida State nor Clemson are that, and that's a whole different process to dive in if they wanted to become that. That's extremely. It's not as simple as saying, "Hey, let me take a test so you can get accredited." No, it's a long process. So that looks like Big Ten's eliminated. Well, as fun as Big Ten would be, joining those schools, getting that Ohio State rivalry more often, that doesn't look like it's too as serious of an option. All right, well, what about the Big 12? Right now, there's been reports that say Clemson and FSU are having serious conversations about joining. Don't believe that. There was one report I saw on Twitter about like 6 universities, and it's saying that there's serious talks. I wouldn't believe the serious part. I believe there's probably some conversations happening because why would the SEC or why would the Clemson, FSU, why would they go through the trouble of suing the ACC to get out of it if they didn't have any open doors or even windows of a potential future landing spot, right? There's common sense tells us there's got to be some kind of level where they've had some conversations about the future landing spot. I would not believe that it is a serious talk where it's like as soon as this court case is over, they're joining the Big 12. That we're not there yet. Some reports are out there saying that that's where we're at, but that's not the case. So I just want to let you know, this isn't clearing it up for you, and I get that because we can't clear it up. People are trying to say that the reports are out there and it's a done deal, and 2025, Clemson's going to be in the Big 12. You can't say that. We're so far away. The court cases change that. How these court suits go, if Clemson wins, ACC wins, how those land, that has a big determining factor. How much Clemson has to pay to truly leave the ACC, that's a determining factor. Because not only would they have to pay to leave the ACC, they'd also have to pay to join whatever conference they're joining. So crazy. There's a lot at play. There's a lot at stake. There's so many determining factors. You can't believe it all. So I just want to hop on and let you know this. 1, don't believe everything you're hearing. 2, have some patience. We don't know the answers. We don't know the future. All we know right now is the future's going to be different. Let's just enjoy this process. Let's focus on this year. As fans, we can join in, see how 2024 is going to go. Still follow along. Still follow the court cases for clickbait. Read the articles because they're fun to read. It's fun to dream, fun to imagine. Don't make plans. Don't go buy a Big 12 t-shirt because there's no way we are locked in right now on that. So next, if the Clemson leaves, if FSU and Clemson leave the ACC, how much trouble is the ACC is in? Where does that leave the conference as a whole with the ACC? We'll talk about that more in just a second after this quick break. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to a peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. So Clemson FSU, like we said, future's going to be different. Future's going to change things. Let's just hypothetically say that for sure Clemson and FSU are out of the ACC. Let's just say that right now they're definitely leaving. If that's the case, where would that leave ACC? And here's where it'd leave them. It'd leave them in trouble. Right now, even with the university still a part of it, their heads are just above water. When you look at the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, SEC and Big 10 are up here. With money coming in, with how much universities are making, the success rate. And then Big 12's down here, and then ACC's still below that. So even if these two schools remain in the conference, you still got the problem of you're the Atlantic Coast Conference and you have schools in Texas and California. That's different, right? That's weird. You still have the problem of only a couple schools have made those runs. SEC has schools, a lot of schools making runs, being competitive in the main money market of football, right? Big 10, same situation. Big 12, a little bit different, but they are more top to bottom whole than ACC is in some arguments, in some aspects. So with all that being said, if Clemson and FSU leave the ACC is in major trouble. I mean, who would that leave to take over? You'd have Miami and NC State would be kind of the people running the conference. They'd be the two main programs that Clemson and FSU are right now in football. Let's break it down like this. So the ACC offers so many different sports, right? They've got canoeing, track and field, men's, women's soccer, volleyball. They've got all the three big sports, right? They've all these different sports. There's really only three sports that make a significant profit. There's only three sports that bring in money that are very valuable for the team. And I'm not saying these are the most important. I'm solely speaking on a money side. And it's these. Number 3 would be baseball. Baseball for a lot of programs, it brings in money. It allows that. It isn't a national. It's gaining. It seems like it's gaining a little bit of popularity. But if Clemson and FSU leave, Clemson's up there for one of the best teams in the ACC. I would say they're the best. Recent success doesn't say that to an extent, but it does to an extent as well. So if they leave there, who's left to be the best baseball teams in the nation or in the conference? UNC, NC State, Virginia, right? Like you got some schools up there that are good schools. They're talented schools, but you'd be losing one of the best with Clemson. If basketball leaves, you still have your top dogs. Top dogs in basketball for ACC. Duke and Carolina. NC State, I'm not throwing shade. I know you made it Final Four, but I'm not throwing shade to you. But your biggest schools in the ACC with basketball is Duke and Carolina. Well, if Clemson and FSU leave, Clemson's made a couple good runs. They seem like their basketball's upticking. FSU, they've had great years. They've had not great years. But so you're losing a couple there. You still have the two. When it comes to the main money source when it comes to college sports, by far is football. Football brings in the most money from sponsors, from TV deals, from ticket prices to concessions. Overall, as a whole, football brings in more money than any other sport in the college atmosphere. That's just reality. No matter what your favorite sport is, no matter what you like watching, the reality is football brings in more money. Obviously, there's some conditions to that. Duke basketball brings in more money because it's Duke University basketball. What else? The most popular sports team in the nation. Duke basketball is more following than a lot of pro teams' social media. I mean, just on social media alone. But for the most part, football brings in the most money when it comes to the majority of college sports. If ACC, who also enjoys that revenue, they also enjoy the money that comes from college football, from their teams playing well, they would lose their two biggest schools when it comes down to national ranking, money coming in, and talent overall, success overall with Clemson and FSU. If these two schools leave, and remember, this hypothetical is just Clemson FSU. There's some reports out there that say multiple teams are. We're just looking at Clemson FSU. If these two schools leave, ACC is now losing their two biggest universities, their two biggest programs in football that bring in the most money. That would leave them struggling. Would leave them struggling hard. What would that leave them with? Well, that'd leave them with Miami. I think Miami right now would be favorited to win. NC State would be up there. Louisville seems like they're on the up and coming. Virginia Tech's got a weird environment, or a great environment, but different program. You're not really sure. It would leave them hurting, right? It would leave them at a point where ACC would be in very, very serious trouble. Like, I don't think they would lose their Power 4 status, but I think it would be like an Elite 3 and then the Power 4, with ACC getting left out a little bit of that top 3. I think if Clemson and FSU leave, ACC is in some major trouble. But let's talk about this too. Like we said, all that was just Clemson and FSU leaving. There's reports out there. A couple people put out there that reports are now that the Big 12 is in conversations with Clemson, FSU, Miami, Notre Dame, and up to 6 schools from the ACC. If 6 schools leave and go to the Big 12, ACC is in trouble. And the reason they are is for this. One reason is they have a contract with ESPN, a part of their grant of rights and all that kind of stuff, all the legal jumbo, where they have to have 14 teams in the conference. That's their contract, at least 14 teams. Right now we're at 18. If 6 leave, now not only do they lose 6 teams, which 2 would be the best and arguably be probably the 6th best when it comes to football, because, that's common sense, but they would lose to some of their top 6 programs, and then they'd have to replace it with 2 programs just to reach the minimum, which if they're replacing 6 with those 2, you're probably not getting 2 of the biggest programs in the nation. You're probably losing a lot of value there with those 2 additions. So now you're losing 6, have to get 2 immediate, have to hustle and get 2 to join real quick. If that happens, ACC is in chance of returning to Pac-12 level, which in the next few years is no more. I think if I'm Jim Phillips, I'm freaking out right now. People wonder, well, why is ACC countersuing? Why are they making this big deal? Because they know if Clemson and FSU leave, it starts this snowball effect of the ACC becoming more like the Pac-12 and possibly not being a conference as a whole. That's how serious this is. That's how big of a deal this is. I know some people are like, well, ACC basketball is huge. Yeah, it is. But you're telling me Big Ten, who's growing, the Big Ten basketball is growing, Big 12 basketball is growing, SEC basketball is even growing. If that's the case, if all that's the case and those are growing, you're telling me that Duke, if they came in and offered Duke more money, they wouldn't leave to just go prove how dominant they are at a national level? Carolina school conferences have already talked about how Carolina has interest from other conferences in joining him. So then you're losing your top 6 in football. Then you're losing your 2 best in basketball. What money is left? What money is coming in? What money is left for people to receive? What money is left for the ACC to have? If this happens, if it happens what it looks like with Clemson and FSU leaving, I give it 10 years before the ACC is no more. I am dead serious. I think the ACC could be not a conference anymore if Clemson and FSU leave. They would be in some serious trouble. And so obviously, ACC's goal is not to have Clemson and FSU leave. And I've already said, as a personal fan of the ACC, I would love it if they could figure it out, get more money, have Clemson and FSU be a part of it, figure it out where it could keep being the ACC. I'm fine with adding teams, but renegotiating some stuff where the ACC gets more money, teams are getting paid more. Obviously, a lot more schools getting paid the same amount, you're lowering it, right? Like if I'm paying 5 schools $100, let's just do hypothetical, right? Obviously fake. If I'm paying 5 schools $100, I have a $100 budget and I have 5 schools. Well, then each school's getting $20. If I add 5 more, I still only have $100. Now I'm giving each school $10, right? It dilutes it when you add teams. Find a way to be able to make each team make more money. Fight for them. Fight. You want your universities to want to stay in the ACC? Prove that you can fight for them and make more money. So ACC's goal is definitely not to lose these teams. But what is Clemson's goal? Is Clemson's goal to stay in the ACC? Because honestly, it could be a better move for the Tigers to switch conferences. We'll talk about that and a lot more right after this break.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Guess what, guys? I don't know if you noticed, but I love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have wound down, we get fewer games. And the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. I can picture it right now. Wow, dropping a bet on the Atlanta Braves to beat the Phillies, or the Yankees to beat the Boston Red Sox. Oh, I can picture it right now. You can do the same exact thing. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. Stop dreaming and do it. I'm telling you, go do it right now. FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of Major League Baseball.
If Clemson left, it might be better for the Tigers if they go to a different conference. Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, I know I've said it multiple times. I'm going to keep saying it. I want Clemson and I want the ACC to return back to its dominance. I want it to continue being a Power 4. I want it to get back to being one of the best conferences in the nation. But as much as I love that, as much as my goal, my fan goal, as unrealistic as it is for Clemson to stay in the ACC, it honestly, on paper, it looks like it's better for the Tigers to switch conferences. And here's why. I'm going to give you 5 reasons why it's better for Clemson to switch conferences. And all of them come with this. All of them come in with drastic improvements for the future, but some struggles in the near future. Long term, major success. Short term, probably some big problems. Number 1 is financial benefits and challenges. All right, right now, they're in the middle of the ACC, this suing partner. Let's say Clemson loses. They're going to have to pay a buttload of money to the ACC to leave. Then they're going to have to pay a good amount of money to join. If that's the case, that hurts them right now. That cost right there, huge transition costs, huge money where they have to pay legal fees. They have to pay exit fees. They have to pay all these different things. They have to pay so much money in order to transition to a new conference. But joining a conference like the SEC, Big 10, Big 12, one of those, that could significantly, and when I say significantly, I mean a huge amount more, increase Clemson's money when it comes to rights from deals, when it comes to sponsorships, when it comes to payouts from success for conference championships. All of that would significantly increase. So money-wise, it would hurt in the immediate future, but long-term, they become a lot richer of a program. When it comes to recruiting, Clemson has already proved time and time and time again that they are one of the best recruiters in the nation. We focused on that a couple episodes ago. If they switch challenges, obviously, immediate future, recruits, high-level recruits, why would they risk going to a university that the future's clouded and they're in the middle of transitions when they go to one that's standing strong right now? But long-term, being a part of one of the best 3 conferences with the ACC dropping off brings in better recruits, brings in more prominent recruits wanting to come and join this program. So financial benefits shows. Impact on recruiting is it enhances that recruiting power. Program development and the infrastructure. Those are fancy words for facilities. Like if you're a part of it right now, obviously, money-wise, short-term, you're not going to be able to spend as much money on improving your program, on improving your facilities. You're not going to be spending as much money in NIL because you'll be spending it on the conference and joining and all that transition costs. But long-term, more money means more upgrades. more money that you're bringing in, more money to offer students and the NIL. The NIL could become a huge part of this, right? Clemson's having to spend more money paying students if in a weird around way. But if that's the case, they also get more money from that. They get more money for NIL, more money to improve their already amazing facilities at Clemson. New conference could be reinvested in upgrading athletic facilities, enhancing their training programs, improving their overall system and infrastructure at the university. So more money could recruit and end up recruiting more money for recruits, bringing the NIL deals, but also improving their facilities. Again, short term probably would hurt it. Probably would hurt. They're improving every year. Wouldn't be able to improve the rate for the next couple of years with the transition costs. But long term, not even that too far of a long term, would bring in massive upgrades to the system. Next is I think you provide the fan and alumni, you provide a whole different ballgame for the fan. I've said it a couple times. I'm a huge fan. I want them to stay. I love the rivalry. Short term, in the near future, I love the rivalries when Clemson plays NC State. Feels like that's a rivalry. When Clemson plays Boston College, for some reason, that's a big rivalry. It was more prominent back a couple years ago, 20 years ago, but than it is today. But that's a rivalry. We have these ACC rivalries that are created, that are being said. FSU's a rivalry, but we'd probably go wherever they go. But think about the potential for new. One, they'd be able to maintain traditions. A lot of those traditions that we have wouldn't go anywhere, right? They would keep the two right turn or the two turns. They keep the buses. They keep the hill. They keep the traditions that make Clemson Clemson. But they'd be able to create new ones with different SEC opponents, new rivalries. Could you imagine if we join the Big Ten and now we play Ohio State more often? That's already a rival itself, and we only play them right now in like bowl games and playoffs. That becomes new. Or if we join the SEC and truly get to dive deeper into the Alabama rivalry, that could be massive, national level. That could be something that determines a game where it's like, no, fans are joining in on this just for this rivalry. We talked about earlier this week about the top 20 matchups this season. Most of those were in-conference rivalry games, right? Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Alabama, those kind of games. If Clemson gets in that, they have more conference rivalries, which create more prominent games, which create more revenue, which create more fans, right? That could be massive for them. It provides a massive uptick on that side. And then lastly is it provides long-term strategic planning. You see, when you're looking at the future, it's able to help them have long-term success and the stability. Look, college football is changing. The whole college football environment is changing. One, they got a new game coming out. They got the NIL. The transfer is different. College is switching up. If Clemson can get ahead of that and can join a conference that is up and coming, that is showing that they're sticking around no matter what happens, if they can get in that rather than the ACC that is all about, are we going to stay or not, right? If they could get into that, it now produces this stability that now Clemson can no longer have to worry about their future of conference, but can worry about and focus in on how are we going to continue to maintain Clemson success, maintain Clemson excellence while we're in the middle of this changing environment, which comes from the worry of being a part of it. So there's a huge decision there. It also provides where they can take some measures to ensure if this happens, they could take some measures to improve a smooth transition. They can have relationships with the new conference. They can participate in the governance. Clemson's a high important level of the ACC. They're always a part of media days. They're always at all the meetings. They're always a spoken leader there. Graham Neff, Dabo Swinney are prominent members of the ACC. Take those personalities. Can you imagine Dabo Swinney going in the Big 12 was like, all right, this is my show now. Like that'd be crazy. Being able to see that just creates a whole new excitement level. Obviously, short-term problems, right? That transition period, that how are they going to be welcoming or not, all that kind of stuff. That's very different. But long-term could provide some huge, huge success. And so with all that being said, as much as I would love for Clemson and the AC to figure it out, it's not looking realistic. With that, the best move for the Clemson Tigers could end up being to join a completely different conference. One of the best moves for Clemson could be to join one of the other conferences. With all that being said, that will wrap up this episode, though. Hey, what's your thoughts? What's your opinion on what all we talked about? Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. Drop a comment on YouTube. If you're an audio listener, give us a rating. Give us that star review. Let us know. Hit us up. We'd love to have a conversation with you about all of that. We would love to hear your feedback on that. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, please. Wherever you get your podcast, you can subscribe to us. It would help us out a lot. We're trying to grow this. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button. Share it with the other fans. If you're an audio listener, listening on your way to work, on your at the gym, gym, in the grocery store, if you're there, that's amazing. We appreciate you. Drop us a 5-star review, even written reviews on like Spotify, Apple Podcast. Written reviews on theirs go a huge, long way. So we would be very appreciative if you could leave those reviews. But thanks so much for making this your first listen here on the Locked On Clemson podcast. Make sure to check out other podcasts from Locked On networks, such as the Locked On ACC show and other great programs. Because here on the Locked On Podcast Network, it is your team every day. We can't wait to see you next week as we continue this conversation, diving closer and closer to kickoff of college football. Until then, though, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring. And as always, go Tigers.